Perhaps sometimes when you're watching TV, you may come across Rick Steves' travels in Europe. It's usually about a half an hour show, and he goes to all sorts of different places and tells you all the places you might want to visit, all the places that you may want to include in the itinerary if you ever go to Europe. But also, too, I think for a lot of us when we watch that show, a lot of the places where he goes we might not travel to. But at least for a half an hour, we're able to kind of go through all these different places, and we can feel like we're there because certainly his shows are very detail-oriented and have a great deal to offer. Well, not too long ago, actually, I think it was just over the past weekend, I was flipping through and he had a Christmas special. And he was showing Christmas celebrations all through the world. And one of the Christmas celebrations that he showed was something that actually takes place today, on December 13th. And that's the celebration of the Feast of St. Lucy. And in many countries, particularly in Scandinavia, they have this tradition where a young girl will wear a crown with candles on her head. And then other children who are also dressed in white follow carrying one candle. And that's supposed to be a celebration of the light. Well, I was looking that up to see what the origins were, knowing that I was going to be here today celebrating this Mass on the Feast of St. Lucy. And there was one that I didn't think was really quite the explanation I was looking for. And it basically said that the reason why they celebrate the little child wearing the candles and all the other children having the candles is because we're getting close to the darkest days of the year. And so it reminds us of the light. But, while that certainly is a nice explanation, I don't think it has quite the spiritual meaning that the feast challenges us to look at. But there are also two other explanations that I think certainly were very fitting. One explanation is that the reason why the girl wears the candles and the other children have one candle and follow her is because it symbolizes the light of Christ, just as St. Lucy's life symbolized the light of Christ. And so by her having the candles and the children following, just as St. Lucy followed Jesus Christ, we're called to follow that light. And I thought that was a nice explanation. But there was also another explanation that I thought was equally as nice, and also, just like the second explanation, challenges us as we follow Jesus Christ. And that's it was in the early days of the church, when there were people hiding because they were Christians, or there were people who were in areas who were poor, who didn't have enough to eat. Those who were a bit wealthier would bring them something to eat. And because they were holding food in their hands, and very often these people might have lived in caves or in other places of hiding, they needed some sort of a light. So the crown with the candles gave the light that they needed to bring what the poor needed. And that certainly would be something that would be probably very fitting for someone like St. Lucy, because her life story is rather interesting. She is a martyr, and she was martyred at a very young age. As a matter of fact, that's why we commemorate her as both a virgin and a martyr, because of the young age at which she faced her martyrdom. But she was born into a wealthy family, and the family itself was Christian. And so she was raised all of her life as a follower of Christ. And she decided at a very young age she was going to dedicate her life to Jesus Christ. But also at the same time that she was deciding she was going to dedicate her life to Christ, her parents did something that was very customary at the time. They arranged for her marriage. And at that time, when a child's marriage was arranged, it was arranged by the parents, and it became something that was legally binding. St. Lucy decided to share with her husband-to-be that she had declared herself a Christian and also had dedicated her life to Jesus Christ. He was not a Christian, and he got so angry at this situation that he turned her in, and they decided they were going to make an example of her. And that is how she came to die a martyr's death. But prior to that, she was known for her generosity. She was known for her care for the poor. And she was known to go out to visit those who were sick and to try to bring them back to health. Those who were poor, try to bring them the food or the clothing or whatever they needed. And those who just needed her, she tried to be present. She had a holiness of life that preceded her martyrdom. And so I think certainly that second explanation, or third explanation, I'm sorry, the crown, because the second and the third were the ones that I think are more fitting for us, certainly reminds us of our call as followers of Christ, that because we have the light of Christ in us, we're called to bring that light to others. And so I think that St. Lucy's feast day certainly is something that is fitting for Advent, and for all of us as we're followers of Jesus Christ. And perhaps as we're thinking about these words, to think about ways that we can be examples of the light of Christ in the lives of others. The people that we meet, the people in our lives, our family and our friends, those we encounter in all sorts of different situations. And know that maybe as we try to be the light of Christ to others and try to shine that light to others, that we might be the only example of light that they might see at that time. But I think also too, as we come to this time of the year, for many people it can be a challenging time. Maybe they might be, we've experienced some kind of loss. Maybe our health isn't what it used to be. Maybe as we come to this time, we kind of think that, Christmas isn't what I remember Christmas always being. These things can be very difficult. But I think that as we remember St. Lucy, someone whose name means light, lucidity, to remember that at these challenging times, that Jesus Christ is our light, and we're celebrating the light of Jesus Christ coming into our world. So as we think about this today too, if maybe our hearts are heavy and we need the light of Christ, to remember that Jesus Christ is our light. He's coming as he promised, and he'll be faithful as he's always faithful.